Добро пожаловать. Как со звуком? Все нормально? Все слышно? Очень приветствую, дорогие друзья. Очень рад вас видеть. Меня зовут Джордис. Я работаю в Кремниевой долине в основе. Как и стартапами работаю, с фондами. So, what this place is, философия, это место, Чехов писал, братья Дуровы здесь фехтованием занимались, вот где вы сидите сейчас. И Дуровы, вы были очень рады вот это такое цитату встретить, что so Чехов wrote about this very place. Вы заметите, здесь кремы на кирпичах. И он рассказал, что братья Дуровы смотрел, он сказал, он был поражен и очень рад увидеть место, где, в основе это русский народ, такой сильный и ловкий. Я тоже смотрел, как фехтует, и вот реально сильный и ловкий. Вот эта цитата, она, кстати, вот на этой стихах висит. И это нас очень как-то приятно, как-то по душе сделало. Это, конечно, вы сами заметите, шикарная метафора. So it's a long metaphor, where people are strong and deft. Ловкий, deft, right? Deft, they're agile, they're quick, right? And that's what we
do. Меня все говорят по-русски.
Наверное. Слушайте, вы что, обалдеть, круто, вау, ничего себе. So it's a place where people, we hope we can help you become stronger. Ладно, можно до свахили, я шучу. Где люди ловкие и сильные. Мы бы хотели вот, в том числе и в физической форме, но как стартапы, как экосистема, как мозги, глаза горят, душа вот в правом месте. И вот реально помочь, мы только катализатор маленький, да, помочь людям, вам в том числе, стать такими. То есть добро, пожалуйста, будьте как дома здесь, мы сегодня открываемся. Я еще буквально 2 минуты, и потом мы начнем в программе. Здесь, конечно, мы начали одни, мы айтишники, мы программисты, и мы работаем с программистами, то есть кирпич, там, трубы лопаются, что только здесь не произошло. И тем более в русской реальности, еще там times X, 10X, да. И мы, конечно, не смогли без команды, как это удивительно, как команда как-то сформировалась каким-то чудом вокруг нас. И если вы здесь, половина, наверное, уже не здесь, или где-то бегают, какие-то вещи делают, но если могли бы просто их аплодировать. Если вы встанете, где вы такие, или тоже рукой-то помахать. Реально молодцы. И мы хотели сегодня тоже отметить маленькое событие. Если вы обратите внимание, вот в углу Наталья стоит. Наталья, вот здесь, да. Если кто надумает стать резидентом, резидент — это человек или группа, или команда, или дизайнер, айтишник, кто угодно в нашем коворкинге. Там список ожиданий уже, слава богу, есть. И мы очень вас бы приветствовали, и ваших друзей, и люди, которые вот реально глаза горят, сильно и ловкие, вот попрактиковаться здесь чуть-чуть. It's a launchpad for the world. Это такое маленькое окошко, мы помогаем группам в основе за рубеж, то есть sales, business traction, right, business development и, может быть, fundraising. Но мы очень верим в Россию, мы очень любим Россию и хотим, что как костяк здесь, конечно, рос и отсюда launchpad был и landing pad, да, где можно приземлиться, если в Москву приедем, как Esther, чуть-чуть. Вот, 3 слова о нас. Если кому интересно coworking, пожалуйста, обратитесь к Наталье в любое время, и мы любой из нас расскажет, покажет, объяснит. Двери открыты, заходите, посмотрите и присоединяйтесь. Будем рады в любом виде. Даже если не в coworking, приходите, ивенты здесь будут реально очень интересно и уникальные. И философия, что мы под радаром летим, очень быстро летим и без шума. Мы не по понтах, и Esther, I think, is an amazing example of that. Нету понтов, мы не чиновники, мы их стараемся дружить, мы их любим, в каком-то виде, конечно, надо, но мы далеко очень от них, мы делаем вещи, yeah? we do shit, as Deacon Clare says, right, or we try to, so that's kind of our philosophy. So without further ado, we have an incredible start, I can't get better than this, with Esther Dyson. And the format, I thought, Esther, was just going to be just kind of a kitchen table conversation, very intimate in some ways, and just something that is really very informal. And we usually start we just cover kind of where things have been, how we've seen them evolve, where we feel things are kind of now, and maybe kind of a look forward at the end and your thoughts about how that progression is, especially the forward-looking. This is an audience, as we know, mostly of startuppers, of a few investors, a few folks that are already in our pipeline and that already, we've heard the pitches of them, maybe lots of new people. And we're video recording it, so it'll be broadcast perhaps throughout all of Russia and Russian-speaking land. So it's something that we hope we can have a good effect, as you have for many, many decades here on the innovation ecosystem. So I'll take a deep breath. I'll stop talking too much. And Esther, if you wouldn't mind, we usually start with the question of your roots, of where you're from. How is it informed, kind of how your life has been shaped? Could you talk a little bit about your parents, growing up, and things like that?
Отец ученый, он астрофизист, и он всегда хотел лететь в Луну. А мать математика, она швейцарка, отец англичанин. Он учился в Кембридже, там были знаменитые русские математики, он сам учился по-русски, и он думал после войны, значит, в 1946 году, ехать в Россию. Из-за этого он нехорошо, он англичанин, но он говорил по-русски, но он как-то больше внимательно смотрел и решил уехать в США. И я родилась в Швейцарии, но вообще я американка, но я училась также русскому языку в средней школе, но я не интересовалась Луной и космосом. Я думала, это будет все сделано уже, когда я буду взрослой. Но я интересовалась Россией и хотела стать корреспондентом Нью-Йорк Таймс в Москве. Но как-то это не случилось. Я была репортером для Forbes magazine, и потом я интересовалась миром компьютеров, и в течение 25 лет я писал бюллетень, релиз 1.0, релиз 1.0. И также у меня была несколько лет Real East, в восточном рынке компьютеров. Я здесь приехал первый раз в 1989 году. Я встретилась сразу с Аркадием Волошем, Степаном Пачковым, разными такими людьми на собрании дня рождения Аркадия Баркасского. И видно, что не было рынка, не было грамотных бизнесменов, но все такие очень интересные, умные люди.
Шикарные.
Да. Алексей Пажитнов и так далее. И я решила вернуться много-много раз. Началось мой первый дел здесь был на одной стороне Terralink, которая еще существует, это outsourcing firm, и также параграф. Кто знает рассказ параграфа фирмы Пачкова?
Расскажите чуть-чуть.
У меня была конференция PC Forum. Я туда пригласила Пачкова и также Волоша Корчинского, Миша Красного, 2-3 еще. И я сделала знакомство между Пачковым и Стив Джобс и Билл Гейтс. И он меня позвонил несколько месяцев позже и сказал: пожалуйста, будет какой-то адвокат тебе позвонит, скажи «да». Они мне подарили 1% параграфа. это было, в конце концов, $500 000. Я решила инвестировать это обратно в Россию где-то. И вот я сейчас член борда Яндекса. У меня также инвестиции из Ингая, Мереск, команда Мереск там, и Островок, Алтергео и так далее.
So you were here very early, and you watched the formation of what I think right now is hopefully it's a growing ecosystem, right?
От коопов до стартапов.
Yeah, and just a funny, I won't say much because this is your show, but я работал в Apple, мне кажется, ты не знаешь, во время Пачикова. И мы приняли, я был со стороны Ньютона, да, стартап, который вот этот почерк, handwriting recognition technology, я был только что первый высший получил, вернулся, я родился, вырос в Купертино, негде было работать, я сказал, ладно, что-то там Apple стоит, я давай туда. Вот я в этой команде просто оказался, просто крупно повезло, и вот Пачикова вот с нашей стороны внутри Apple, ну скалы там был, я не совсем понял, что и как. Когда вот Джобс вернулся, конечно, я понял, что такое, ну, наверное, predecessor to the iPhone. Ну, давайте вернемся, попробуем, если, Эстер, у вас есть взгляд на вот этой эволюции, corporate startups, but from the very beginning, from where, I mean, Yandex was maybe just a dinner conversation, right? Or it was just they had the code, they had the algorithms? Okay. How have you viewed this evolution? I mean, what have been the things that seems to have gone right? What are the things that seems to be the challenges, or through that course of Russian history? Well, we started kind of в России. Okay. Can you kind of get into the meat a little bit?
Сначала никто не понял, как делать фирму. У вас были большие государственные структуры, и кроме этого ничего нельзя было. В Польше и, конечно, в Англии у каждого человека был какой-то родитель, который занялся маленькой фирмой, что-то независимое. Но в России никто не понял, как делать маркетинг, менеджмент, ничего. Очень умные люди. Но первые фирмы были это как свадьба между 15 людьми и без prenuptial agreement. Потому что никто не хотел говорить о деньгах, это было неприятно. Но надо стать explicit, надо понимать, кто ответственный кому, за чего. И это очень важно. Я это вижу сейчас. Я занимаюсь не лекарством, а здоровьем. Как делать, чтобы маленькое село вообще стало здоровьем. И никто не принимает общественность для результатов. Это у нас в Америке также. И как делать, чтобы человек знает, чем он ответственный, когда и точно сколько.
Ну, это все-таки меняется, ясно?
Да, это меняется.
Вы на глазах в своей жизни увидели,
да,
как все-таки
это
нереальный просто сдвиг. То есть здесь трудно даже отличить, когда мне... Или вести же еще есть какие-то такие все-таки такие подходы философии.
Например, я вижу в Яндексе, сейчас у нас есть бизнес-юнит, и вначале каждый человек в Яндексе это был как egalitarian. Каждый человек занимался всем во фирме и хотел знать о всем и помочь всем, но не занимался своими задачами. А сейчас бизнес-юнит, он больше интересуется своим юнитом, а меньше, чем что делают другие. И сейчас есть ответственность и больше прозрачность. Это не только проблема прозрачности государства, а прозрачность в бизнесе.
Да, но это по большим корпоратам. Вы очень много общаетесь здесь со стартапами, тем более, и в том числе и ранние этапы. И тем более вы по всему миру с стартапами общаетесь. Мы встречаемся в Калифорнии, в Кремниевой долине. Как вот в этой отрасли, как вы чувствуете, что происходит, что интересно, как культура здесь, она тяжелее, просто в Кремниевой долине, вы об этом говорили, там тоже нелегкая культура, там огромный pressure, да, то есть огромный напряг. Сейчас, на самом деле, может быть, тоже, если о health говорить, непонятно, it's not that healthy, people are under huge stress.
То, что я делаю, это non-profit, но в Калифорнии сейчас меньше денег, меньше мечты стало. Есть так много для каждой идеи.
Вот здесь, в России?
Нет,
или
это в Калифорнии. Да, есть 20 вариантов.
Каждая идея 20 вариантов.
Да, и только 3 будут жить. И
то есть все бьются за эти 3, прямо, чтобы туда попасть, вот эти 3.
Да,
не все попадают.
И также многие, по-моему, не очень интересно. Uber для обуви. Это, по-моему, не очень интересная проблема.
Согласен. Вот кто его знает, может быть, интересно. Can you share your boots with me? Надо размер повыше находить. А здесь все-таки меньше тогда на одну идею? Или все-таки, если мы думаем о глобальном рынке, нам, мне кажется, надо все-таки здесь очень мощный местный рынок, но надо в глобальном как-то конкурировать.
Я думаю, что нет. У России есть достаточно проблем надолго. И интересно.
Ну, как и везде, наверное, да?
Есть большой народ, и много проблем, и много мест, чтобы улучшить жизнь каждого человека. И не только с выбором, но логистикой, едой, здоровьем. Чтобы все было лучше организовано, и люди не потеряли так много времени, потому что это не работает.
Но все-таки местный рынок мощный, там огромные проблемы и есть над чем работать. Ну, доллары, евро привлекательно зарабатывать сейчас. Интересно, что происходит за рубежом. Мы об этом и говорим. Is it important for startups here to actually have a look at what's happening elsewhere, where these maybe 20 are fighting for 3 spots? Or is it enough to start here?
Было бы полезно знать, но это сейчас американцы не интересуются. Это хорошо, вы можете спокойно
здесь, в России,
здесь сниматься.
Ну, а если нам туда выезжать? Там конкурируем, там...
Да, здесь вы знаете о Фейсбуке, Snapchat, да, и так далее. Вы не знаете о Boxby, о Yakpack. У меня много ошибок. И для каждого Фейсбука есть 200 неудач. Да. И не видно, как трудно, если... Я помню раз в 91 у меня была конференция в Будапеште, и там это был East-West High-Tech Forum. Русские люди, польские, венгерские, и также, я не знаю, IBM, Lotus, Microsoft, Apple, и так далее. И после этого ко мне пришел Пажинов и сказал, было очень интересно. Мы все знаем о Билл Гейтс, он какой-то бог, но он из Гарварда, он говорит по-английски, у него богатые родители. Нам он не очень интересно, но видеть, что сделали венгерские, это нам интересно и relevant.
Even on the early stage.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Я думаю, что это не что здесь, как, например, Яндекс, здесь чудесные мозги. И я сама училась космонавтом здесь. И
мы об этом поговорим, это
да.
Очень интересно, да.
Но у вас есть местный рынок хороший. Если у вас есть какая-то технология, хорошо, найти всемирный рынок. Но если у вас есть что-то больше культурное, которое занимается проблемами людей, здесь большой рынок и
okay. Давайте поговорим.
большие шансы.
Давайте тогда, может быть, чуть-чуть, я буквально еще, может быть, пару вопросов, и потом давайте обязательно откроем вам. Здесь люди сидят, действительно, как и братья Дуровы и Чехов писали, люди будущего, да, то есть они смотрят, мы смотрим вперед, стараемся подумать, какие есть тренды, where's the cutting edge, what's defining the cutting edge, and that's kind of the question that we're on the local market as well as on the global market working on, because I think the world is coming. I mean, especially, you're a wonderful example. You're kind of one of the people who built the internet, it seems like, and at the same time, you're so local
Yes,
here. Его, вы смотрели с очень близкой дистанции, не издалека. I mean, your career and your life has spanned really the globe. I mean, you're one of the people I can think of that is really, we're very lucky to have you as a loyal Russian fan, but you're really a global citizen. What have you noticed? What do you feel? I mean, let's get into your passions maybe. What's with health? What's with space? What do you feel is that cutting edge there?
Okay.
And maybe how does Russia have a part? And if you want to switch things, these guys are actually, their English is pretty darn good.
Сначала технические messengers, значит, so there, я говорю,
yeah, let's switch over, no problem.
The internet, the world keeps folding like this and then like that. So the internet created global interconnection in theory. And the browser lets, you need to conform to some strictures, but any computer can talk to any website, and there's, it goes in and out like this. But then we get to the world of apps, and suddenly the websites, the whole business of search changes because people look for things through their apps, and suddenly we discover, well, people download 20 apps that they use, and then they have 5 apps. They keep downloading them and deleting them. So you again get a very small, restricted world. And then the next step is going to be the messengers, where you simply send text through a small channel, and you have a lot of intelligence. On the one side, the human being, maybe some intelligence. And then on the other side, more intelligence with the computer that will understand text or maybe voice, and so suddenly you don't have this visible interface. You have all the translation happening in the AI behind simply this very flexible text interface. It's flexible, but it's also brittle. So, which is going to be the messenger, which is going to be the intelligence going through the tube? Is Uber going to use Facebook Messenger? Is Slack going to be another? It's not clear, but clearly AI and being able to model the world, being able to model geography and time and schedules and all these other things, so that when a person asks a question, the thing at the back can shift the context and understand first, what is the question about, and then answer the question. I don't know how many of you, if I hear someone speaking, sometimes I know they're speaking a foreign language, and then I listen some more, and then I know, it's German, I can understand it, it's French, I can understand, Russian, I can sort of understand it, or maybe it's Spanish, I can recognize some words, but I can't understand it. It's that same sort of, you hear some patterns. Once you know what language it is, then you bring in a different recognition engine. In the same way, once you know what the context is he asking for directions, or is he trying to figure out his schedule for Tuesday, or is he buying a present? So you have huge amounts of intelligence replacing huge amounts of much more
data.
Brittle code in between. So that's one big thing. Another big thing, I think, when we really have 3D printing, it's going to change logistics dramatically. Logistics, spare parts, inventories, it's going to change how business works. The same thing, 3D printing food doesn't make sense, but growing food in buildings instead of in big fields, that makes a lot of sense. So again, the logistics, the amount of transportation versus the amount of local production, whether it's food or boots or scissors, that world will change dramatically. And the software will be almost free the way software is, and what will be expensive is materials. So you will ship materials around, you'll spend a lot of money producing materials.
But they'll be in a packetized form, they won't be in an
and so
object.
you won't be shipping water around, again, food, it's crazy to, you should assemble as much as you can from local materials.
Right.
On the health side, so, let's see, how many of you smoke?
We're big smokers.
I know. Increasingly, most people would live until 80 if they did all the things that they should do. It's not what happens to them, it's their own behavior. It happens to them because the food that's available, the ability to get exercise in Russia in the winter. But so much of health is about prevention, not just about health care, and trying to show that and make people understand it better. And that's where things like measurement, how many people have some kind of, Apple Watch? Что?
Is it a Jawbone?
Yeah, this is Jawbone. Apple Watch, Tag Heuer.
You've got all the bases covered.
This one, I can swim in the water with these two. No. So how many of you have one of these to measure your activity? Okay. Medesk, of course. So, you're young and healthy and probably, if you're over 25, you're probably beginning to disintegrate. But you don't really know it. And once we have non-invasive blood monitoring, we have glucose monitoring, you probably know more about how well your car is working than you know about how your body is working. And if you could track it better, it would make it easier to be healthy. And that would change, your productivity, it would change the productivity of the country, it would reduce healthcare costs. So that's really my mission now, to figure out how to make that happen.
And it seems like it's happening in front of our eyes. I mean, this isn't 20, 30 years away, or there's pieces that are still ways off.
It's still getting worse.
Okay.
But among the intelligentsia, it's getting better, but in the broad,
right.
And partly, so there's a very big market for healthcare. There's a very small market for health. And then there's an even bigger market for bad health, which is alcohol, cigarettes, bad food, whatever.
And let's finish it off as far as future thinking goes, if you wouldn't mind, about space. Do you want to say a few words? Is that something you're active in? Or those are three huge pieces that you just mentioned.
I'm an investor как сказала, я училась в космонавтом в Звездном городке, недалеко отсюда. И это было чудесное время для меня. Я хочу умирать на Марсе, но не скоро.
So, but it's kind of a full loop with your father,
Yeah.
right? With his fascination, and you mentioned we started off our discussion, and we'll end it with this piece. You started it off about watching as your parents, you know, with this great fascination. And it's a wonderful story, of course, with the Soviet Union, with Russia and America. I suppose the space race was a metaphor almost of some sorts. And it's interesting that it's not something you're writing about. It's something you're actually helping create now, and you've participated in very directly. Yeah. So we'll end it kind of with that full loop. Thank you, Esther. There's a lot of questions here, I'm sure, about startups, about предпринимателей, what you invest in, what are the pieces you work in, etc., etc. So я очень предлагаю вот прямо очень практические вопросы задавать. Я маленький нюанс, и конечно, у нас микрофон, Игорь, подскажешь, как быть, да? Микрофон здесь, подходите. Да, и если на русском, я думаю, здесь очень много на английском тоже не проблема. Пожалуйста. Ну, маленький нюанс, если кто надумает, Esther очень very generous with us, and we often enough when we invite people of this incredible caliber here, and we spend some time with them. This is kind of public sessions. What we're able to do sometimes, and Esther was very generous to provide this, is provide a private sessions. То есть завтра, в субботу, где-то около 9:30, жутко рано в субботу, но ладно, ничего, до где-то часа, может быть, ну, будем где-то около часа держать. Эстер выслушивает pitches, тет-а-тет. Вот это здесь, то есть...
Тет-а-тет с тремя или...
Right, in waves, yes, you don't have to repeat yourselves, but it'll be in waves.
Small,
We have 3-4 waves. So, if you would like, we have pretty much all the slots filled. But if you could catch one of our team here or catch myself, we'd love to get you in. And if you can't get in, we'll have a lot more opportunities. But this is a wonderful opportunity. If you have a burning startup, and most of these guys do, and women do, it's a great opportunity to try out your idea. It's a very rare opportunity in person. Давайте тогда откроем на вопросы. Если что с языком надо, переведем, придумаем. Ладно, пожалуйста. Представьтесь.
My name is Pavel, and I have a question about my startup, which is in the tech area. Let's say we have a prototype of the product, and we already tested it on several users. Our product is for teachers. It helps them to build the educational path for their students and share them openly for other participants of the service. So I'd like to ask you, what opportunities for products like that you could suppose or highlight? What you know?
Okay, so...
Do you want to get right in? Do you want to make it more broad? That's applicable to everybody?
I mean, the big problem is almost everything in the world that's going to be useful in the next 2 years. Several people are already working on it. What will make it different? And you disagree?
Of course.
Okay, what will make one succeed versus the other is the ability to find the market, to have the best user interface, to be effective at selling it, and then to keep improving it. So when I make an investment judgment, it's rarely on the idea itself. The idea to me is a proxy. How does the team think? How do they define the problem? How do they understand the user? So it's more like looking at somebody's artwork to see, are they a good artist versus don't want to buy this piece of art. And then, so that's more the question, what does this product mean about what your next product will be?
Yeah.
And I mean, on the education market, I don't know enough about your product.
The product, how to develop it, on the next step.
Right.
We're going to try to keep it to one question each, which have a ton of questions.
Yeah, I was trying
if you can make them as general as you can, as open-ended as you can, такие общие, которые всем полезны. Если надо лично пообщаться, оставайтесь чуть попозже. Ну, попробуем чуть-чуть, да. Do you want to answer that one, or let's keep it rolling?
I don't know if you were going to disagree in some particular way, or just...
In a very general way. I mean, one of the problems with having children is that when you have children, you have to lower yourself to their intelligence. I found that it's a little bit similar when you have to listen to pitching sessions all the time and go to conferences, roundtables. So my question to you is a little bit rude, like how are you able to keep original, controversial, and interesting, profound ideas appearing inside your head after listening to all the drivel and bullshit sessions? And if you are able, perhaps you would be willing to share one of the controversial, original, profound, deep ideas with the audience, something that maybe few people will understand, but something that might actually have an impact.
Well, I'll tell you my idea, in which I invested once. I wrote about it in my book. I still think it's one of the best ideas that should happen. And in some ways it's beginning to happen. So this is the idea, it's a very retro idea of sender pays.
It's over the spam problem.
Yes, not only sender pays, but recipient charges.
But actually, sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so I'll just, it's a perfect idea. It makes economic sense. It would definitely fix the world, and it would help. The problem now is the costs of spam are borne by the users and by large server farms. They're not borne by the senders, who are actually imposing those costs on society and on users. The reason it's not happening is because of all kinds of adoption problems and attribution and so forth. But in fact, it is happening in a somewhat different way within LinkedIn, within all these closed garden services that require you to be a member and to vouch for other people. You still have the problem of spam because every one of those services now enlists their users to invite their friends. But I would say, in general, LinkedIn is probably the best model of it working reasonably well. Not perfectly, but reasonably. And it's a small version. Things I like in general, I would call them governance, like governance plays. eBay is a big governance play around fraud detection and spam and holding a market. Facebook, Meetup, all these peer-to-peer services spend a huge amount of money on governance and peer-to-peer rating systems and moderation. Another really cool thing I invested in, just so you get a sense of it, and then we'll do another question, it's called civil.cm. So if I have a website with news, then I have comments. The comments are full of garbage and stupid people. And so the idea is, if you want to comment, first you need to have an identity. It doesn't need to be a real name, but it needs to be an identity. And you need to rate 3 other people's comments before you can post your own. So they make the users work to post comments. And so you get, and of course, the comments that are rated very poorly get thrown away. Anyway, it's brilliant, and of course, it's brilliant and completely unprotectable. But the woman who started it has a reasonable head start, and she's going to keep improving it. And it has, it's got a certain benefit for mass because you get a reputation on the system you can carry with you to other publishers, so there's a network effect. And finally, the obvious market is publications. But the lucrative market is brands. Because if I'm Volkswagen, I want to allow the public to comment. I don't want to censor them. I don't want to deal with this problem, so I can outsource it. And that's, to me, there are some clever ideas out there, and even though this is fairly simple and very pragmatic, I also think it's quite brilliant. And it's the kind of thing I like, where somebody's solving a real problem in a clever way that kind of aligns a lot of people's incentives to make something good happen.
Why do you think this didn't work for App Store and the spam in the App Store market?
Probably because Apple got too greedy. They make money off the apps.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Danilo.
Hi, I'm Kate. Thank you for being with us today. You've mentioned preventive medicine in your speech, and I think maybe it's my own pain, but it also, I think, a pain of our country, because, for example, my parents wasn't in the hospital for 15 years now, like literally. For 15 years, my mom never visited a doctor, which gives me creeps, because she's 55, and it's a very stage when a lot of illness are coming. So, if you are very interested in this, and I think you are, can you mention a little bit what's going on in the world? Like, is there any tech, any solutions, well, beside maybe a simple website which reminds you to go to the doctors? And if you really want to fight this problem, like, do you have any plans?
Yeah. Well, presumably you've reminded your mother to go to the doctor.
I am.
Yeah.
All the time, but
So,
literally what's working is that I'm going to the doctor and I make the appointment
right.
for her.
But I mean, that's not something a website can solve. That's the problem. In the communities I'm working in, so this is not a technology. This is, my assumption is one thing you need to do is change the food supply in the schools where you have a chance to do it. You can't change it in the stores, but you can. So this is very complicated. If you invest long term, you will save money on healthcare costs. So if you're an insurance company that has a long-term view, but most insurance companies don't, if you're a community that has a long-term view, maybe you can generate enough revenues from philanthropy or something to make the vegetables cheaper than the hamburgers. But the thing that changes people's behavior, in addition to this real-time feedback, it's other people. So the idea, fundamentally, we're going to be training a lot of coaches. Right now, only rich people have personal trainers and they have psychiatrists. And poor people need them too, maybe with a different name. But people whose job it is to keep other people healthy. I mean, in the old days, it should have been your family, but especially in America, that's not working very well. And good luck with your parents.
Thank you.
Because it's hard.
Thank you. Great questions. Let's take about 3 or 4 others. Keep them broad if you can. That would be interesting. Спасибо. Можно на русском тоже.
Okay.
Не проблема.
So first of all, guys, thank you for being with us tonight. So since my name is Ivan and I'm representing the space or satellite startup, we've been reaching you out like about a year ago. It's named Yadini, probably you remember. So and everybody here know that you are very passionate about the space, right? So and my question is very broad and particular at the same time. So what do you think about the Russian space startups world?
I don't know the Russian space startups world. I know only Roscosmos, unfortunately.
That's nice because I brought our presentations with us today.
You'll get to know them, Esther. That's it.
For this answer.
But based on what I know in the US, the startups are much more likely to do things effectively. On the other hand, they need capital because space is not cheap, and so that's the big challenge.
Absolutely, yes. And the thing is, I would like to mention is there is not so many places all over the earth where the city like Moscow had a huge heritage in terms of the space-related activities, right? And one of the thresholds which make this industry so difficult is brain, is engineering threshold, and that's why I think that one of the way where Russia could really be competitive with the other countries in the space-related satellites. I mean, in terms of the great heritage that we have. That's why I asked my question.
Yeah, no, I'm interested.
So you can catch up later.
Yeah.
But I think one of the pieces we love to talk about is that, where's our space shuttle, right? It's in the museum, right? Who's sending?
right now.
Yeah. Who's sending stuff up?
Thank you,
It's you
Russians,
guys.
for helping us get stuff up to
Yeah. I mean, we're really counting on you. And what I love to talk about also is that the cost of space
you can approach problems multiple ways, and I think one of the great things that we love about Russian space program is that it's very practical, it's very economical, right? Stuff is done. I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but it's done with baling wire, right? Whereas we need to like have. I'm exaggerating, obviously, очень сильно, but it's very practical here, right? It's not these high-fluting super microchips, everything, which ultimately the cost kills it, right? It's in a museum, and whereas here it's going up into space, it's doing it.
So who saw the movie The Martian? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Здравствуйте, Эстер, меня зовут Антон. Имея опыт работы с российскими стартапами, с американскими стартапами, мне интересно знать, с какими трудностями чаще всего сталкиваются российские стартапы, люди, да, предприниматели, и как бы вы порекомендовали там бороться с этими будущими проблемами, которые возникнут у тех, кто начнет делать какие-то международные проекты.
Okay, so how do you...
So what you work with global startups, Russian startups.
Just what was the question?
And the question was, what do you recommend, what do you notice is kind of unique about Russian startups? And correct me if I'm wrong, but what's unique about us here?
Well, something about the problems you're going to face.
Yeah, and what do we need to do?
Проблемами чаще всего встречаются
С чем-то?
Да, российские предприниматели, и как с ними бороться?
And what can we do about them?
So, I mean, the biggest problem is in the United States, you can pretty much outsource anything except the one thing you do. If I'm doing comments, I can outsource my own accounting, I can outsource legal, I can hire a CFO, I can get a developer. So just the little thing that you are most focused on, you can do, and you can pretty much just get the other stuff. It's a commodity. In Russia, it's much harder. You have to assemble a much bigger part of everything you want to build. It's just not as easy to find all the people you need with all the various skills. It's very, very easy to find engineers, but much harder to find salespeople, good communication skills, good marketing. So that's probably one of the biggest problems. The second is the best thing that companies need, and it varies, the specific kind you need varies, but good customers. You know, bad customers, they're really bad for business, and especially if you're selling big things, many of your customers in Russia take bribes, so the best product does not win. So you need to, I mean, and this is why, you know, you have the success of Yandex and these companies that sell to consumers, they have good customers. But if you sell to large industrial structures, it's much harder often. So those are probably the two biggest challenges. And then just most people have not experienced being managed by a good manager, so they tend not to know how to manage very well. And I mean, the one thing I would say, you know, go take a 2-day communication course. It sounds silly, but just how to write an effective email, how to manage a schedule, just the very boring logistical things of doing business that are not intellectually challenging at all. They'll really make your business move much smoother.
It's a great question. I mean, what are your thoughts? A lot of these folks are very global, right? They've lived and studied abroad. They're here, they're there. A lot of our friends, I think 40% of our startups that we work with, we call them. They say, hey, we're Berlin, we're in London, Moscow. I mean, is there a story behind maybe going abroad for half a year, checking out how those cultures work, coming back, being enriched by that? Or we can figure it out here?
You know, it varies. I mean, it takes a lot of time. And so once I came here on a trip with Jack Dorsey and the CTO of Cisco and a guy called Ashton Kutcher. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know who he was. I mean, I heard his name. And it was quite wonderful. Even in Novosibirsk, everywhere we went, we were being chased by screaming girls. Anyway, in Novosibirsk, we talked first to a class of high school students, and 2/3 of them said they wanted to go to the United States. And so he asked why, and they said, well, in the United States, everybody is always smiling, and they're polite, and they're happy, and they work hard. Yeah, which is not true, by the way. But then we had a bigger meeting at the university with lots of students and some professors, and it became clear that this was actually the second time they had this meeting, because they had a rehearsal the day before of Tyrenia. And the first guy got up and said, Mr. Donahoe, president of eBay, you are the American dream. Can you tell how it's like to be the American dream? And, I mean, they were just such planted questions. So we started asking the students questions instead. And the professors at the back, and then again this question of, should you go west came up, and Ashton, he turned out to be smarter than I thought. He was so wonderful. He stood there and he said, look, you don't need to go to America. You can smile here. You can work hard and be happy here. It depends on you, what you create. And so, there's lots of nice stuff in the West, but there's lots of nice stuff here, and you can build it for yourselves.
That's a wonderful, wonderful note to end on. I know we're squirming in our seats already, but there's a ton of questions here, and thank you for those. Спасибо, особенно те, которые нас стоят и слушают из-за кулисов. Давайте, может быть, 2-3 еще, а потом мы здесь всю вечер будем сидеть. Давайте 2-3 еще, может быть, вопросы.
Good evening, Esther.
Приветствую.
Thank you. Very, so great to have you with us today. We do some heavy tech in drone delivery. We'll be happy to pitch tomorrow. But my question is a little bit in different area. Everybody know you're into flying things, space and plane. So my question is, do you pilot yourself? Do you fly yourself? And if so, which one is your favorite model, plane, helicopter, maybe seaplane?
No, so it's interesting. I can, in theory, fly a Soyuz. In practice, I cannot even drive a car. I'm probably going to learn how to fly an Icon A5, which is a new light sport aircraft. I'm getting delivery in a few months. And for what it's worth, today I was in a helicopter. Here's, I don't know if you recognize.
We have an Apple TV, so I don't know if we can actually probably try to broadcast it.
I flew from the heliport near Strogana Mitra over to the monastery on the road towards... Yeah.
Новодевичье, наверное.
Yeah, let me show you. Whatever, I'll show you later. But anyway, so, very disappointing answer. No, I don't have a favorite. Well, I have a favorite airplane, which is the A5. I'm an investor, but I haven't learned how to fly it yet.
All right, cool. Let's take 2 more questions. Anil, catch her one-on-one for sure.
We have 2 questions.
2 questions, great. Okay.
Question here.
Пожалуйста.
Hi, my name is Tanya, and thanks for this evening and for having us here. I have a question about the startup vibe you were talking about. You said that Yandex is changing right now, and it was a community of people that were caring about everything, and now it's like kind of turning into real business. What do you think? Does the startup, to be successful, have to have this vibe? When people are kind of doing everything, caring about everything, or can you just kind of build a company where everyone is concentrated on getting straight to the point, like building the company just as a business from the very beginning, which is more efficient? What should you do?
So you shouldn't ever entirely lose the mission. but at the same time, people should have their own focus. And in my,
If you want to just grab it like this.
even in my health startup, which is, we're working in 5 communities. And to be candid, in November, I wasn't very happy with the progress we were making. And then I realized, there's 5 of us, and there's 5 communities. So each one of us took a community, and we didn't lose the contact with the rest of the team, but at the same time, we had one community we were responsible for. And so when I was reading something about a government grant for community health workers, and and there were this restriction and this regulation, it was sort of boring. But now I would read it thinking, well, this is for Muskegon, my community, and it became more interesting. And I've been doing all kinds of things for a long, long time, and to just watch even how it changed my own behavior and attitude to be accountable for one thing, even though I'm also accountable for the whole thing. I was sort of embarrassed that I was so surprised. I was so embarrassed that we had not done this sooner. The reason you need good managers is because you can't have just rules. You need to know which rule to use in which situation. It's always a question of judgment, and there's always a tension between focus on your own business and work as a team. There's a tension between get the product out fast and make the product perfect. And it's resolving these tensions that is the manager's job. One more, completely broad advice. I was interviewing a very good manager once about what is it that you do. He was Italian, so he started telling me about Renaissance Italy, and I said, no, what do you do as a manager? He said, I absorb uncertainty. So the people who work for me can do their jobs without worrying. And I mean, there's so much uncertainty in the world. Are we going to succeed? Do we have enough money? Will the customer? He absorbs that and says, just do your piece. And then I met another manager and he said, well, that's very good, but I'm trying to train my deputy. And I'm trying to give him some uncertainty so that he can learn. And he will absorb the uncertainty. So it's, even as a manager, you need to know when you should absorb all the uncertainty and when you should delegate some of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And another really quick piece, one of the beauties of communities where you're sitting right now, если вы не познакомились друг с другом, это, кстати, Валентин Преображенский из «Модель мира», очень всегда, и Андрей тоже Лобанов, всегда напоминает своих участников, пожалуйста, как минимум, после последнего сейчас вопроса, по-любому представьте соседа. Здесь реально один из вот этих ответов, это тоже, это to find yourself in the right ecosystem, to find yourself among the company of единомышленники. So, and here you are, you're literally right here, and this is the space that we kind of built for this type of stuff, right? Where your coworkers are accountants, they're lawyers, they're designers, they're web guys, they're Ruby on Rails programmers, right? So you can actually kind of turn to the next desk, marketers. You can turn to the next desk and say, hey, Danilo, what are you working on? Or Mike, can I get some help on the Slack bot, right? Right, so you can get that, it's not too far away. And I think there's a lot of groups doing this type of thing in emerging economies, and in Russia as well. And this is kind of one of those little pieces without, or out of the context of that. Let's take a last question, then we'll just open it up to mingling. So be sure again to meet as many folks here as you can. It's a pretty rare audience here today, actually.
Thank you. Hi, you probably can't see me, but I'm here. My name is Misha, and thank you very much for the talk. The question is, you started with the story about Panchikov and Ivanov, and there was Arkady Barkovsky mentioned, and Pajitnov mentioned, and all these guys, very famous in Russia, in IT sphere, all these guys have relocated to the valley at some time. And And what I see around myself is nowadays still a lot of friends of mine who have some idea or have some early day startup, they relocate to the Valley also. Or they relocate to some other place, but they don't do it from the point from Moscow. You said about the story with Ashton Kutcher that you can do everything sitting in Novosibirsk or sitting in Moscow, right, or elsewhere, but still people are trying to do the thing from San Francisco area. Why is it still that way regarding all the technology we have, all the Slack and Skype and everything to interact with locals over there? And if we still have to do this, have to relocate somewhere where this mystery of making startup is, this magic is happening. So what is the place to go? Is it still a valley, or maybe, how do you feel, maybe Berlin or Tel Aviv have some balance and have the mystery also?
So Volosh is still here. Alexei Alorov comes in Gaia is doing very well. It's a tough economy here, but...
And Volosh is still local.
Yeah.
I mean, the market is still here also.
Yes. I mean, there's parallels as outside Russia, but, you know, it's just not easy. There are so many people in Silicon Valley that you do not see who are failing. One or two, Sergey Brin is there, yeah. But, you know, the statistics are better for you here, I think, mostly. Again, it depends, is it a technical product or is it something that's more useful to people?
Is there any technical product at all? Every product has its people, customers, and
yeah, but there's a difference between an accounting software or contacting a social network versus something that's, you know, mostly B2B technical. The back end matters more, the technology matters more. But I mean, right now is not the time to go to Silicon Valley no matter what, because suddenly the money is drying up for the small startups. There are way too many of them. The problem is it's much easier to start, but it's just as hard to continue and to scale. You know, everything I've said, it's sort of like what I said about a manager. Your job as a startup is to know whose advice to listen to and which advice to ignore, because you're going to get completely contradictory advice from me, from the next person who comes here. And we're both giving you advice that's sometimes good and sometimes not. And your challenge is, which advice should you listen to? Which person gave you, you know, like Peter Thiel's advice to drop out of college. It's really stupid advice for almost everybody, but for one or two people like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, it turned out pretty well. But it doesn't mean that it's good advice. It just means that one or two people it was bad advice for. So that's your challenge, you know. So don't listen to me. Make up your own mind. Listen to lots of people and decide whether their advice is actually the right advice for you.
Well, with that, it's just been a wonderful evening to listen to your advice, Esther. We do value it very highly, and regardless of they're all, yeah, some of it. And I'd like to just keep it short and give you a break as well. I know you've arrived relatively recently and are heading out again. So let's stick around if you wish. The coffee here is incredible. West 4, one of the best coffees in Moscow. Please get to know each other if you haven't yet. Introduce each other. Introduce yourselves. Esther, again, we're going to let her go and rest soon. But again, if you want to try to get into that pitch session with her on Saturday, tomorrow morning, please see me or see one of us. We'll try to get a slot, and it's pretty filled. So if you don't get a chance here, we have plenty more to come. And
can I just talk about
of course
tomorrow? So,
yes. Yeah, I don't want to make it a free-for-all.
No, Val's original idea was 10 to 15 companies, 10 10 to 15 minutes each. And I said,
You're going to repeat yourself over and over.
I will repeat myself, and so to me, the value of pitches, of business plan contests, of a lot of these things is you get feedback for the other people as well as for yourself. You see someone like you ask a question, it's a smaller group,
right?
But it's not one-on-one, so it's about 4 companies, and there's also a little philosophy that this helps people to collaborate. There's another philosophy that, your idea isn't worth much, it's your implementation. And so if you're scared of people stealing your idea, don't be so scared. If there's a direct competitor you don't want to be in the same session with, I understand that. But in general, if you're marketing to teachers and you're marketing to students, you actually discover, boy, this is someone I could work with or learn with. So the idea of just 4 companies or something in a smaller session it's very carefully designed.
Right. And that allows more of us to get audience, which is fantastic actually as well. So have a wonderful evening. Очень благодарна, что вы здесь. Давайте тоже Эстера поблагодарим.
Спасибо.
Друзья, мы с Волом только что придумали организовать стартап спиддейтинг. Можно и без стартапа участвовать. Все, кто хочет познакомиться еще с десятком единомышленников, найти общие идеи, общий бизнес, пожалуйста, вот в этом зале подходите ко мне с Игорем. Мы разбиваемся на 2 круга по 10 человек. Знакомство начинаем через 1 минуту. Это проблема действительно грамотно,
Good night. So you know what? Yeah, that's okay. If they've gone, if you sneak me out, oh my God.
Could we get you? Do you have a preference?
Oh, definitely this one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Could we?
I knew. I've signed so many of these.
Awesome. Wow. We're going to have it up, if you don't mind,
sure.
with our
Wonderful.
cloud.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thanks a lot. See you tomorrow morning.
I'll walk you out
if you walk past,
Will do. Yep.
safer than...
Ну все, это уже пошли, да? Are you warm enough?
Yeah, actually, I'm like warms down in the bottom.
Yeah, let's grab it.
Thank you, and thanks for helping me fix my business.
Yeah, thank you. What a treat. Yeah, I think we got to it in the Q&A. I asked boring abstract questions up front, but I think they've really enjoyed it. I think it's very important.
I hope they did.
Yeah, I think...
I always feel so bad running off at the same time.
That's fine. You're going to be smart.
Yeah, I know. Tomorrow is just, I'm so glad we've got a sort of some structure.
Yeah. We'll administer it. Fine. Esther, you want to do one more shot? Do you want Esther with the flowers? Or is that the proper thing?
Okay, there we go.
Awesome,
Okay.
awesome. Thank you. Okay. Spasibo.
So, the Metis people have gone, I guess, right?
What's that?
The Metis people.
I couldn't. Yeah,